Alright, hello. I'll just be discussing how carbohydrates are processed in the human body, and yeah, that's about it. Right, so carbohydrates, carbs are a great source of energy that is quick and just like I said, just really good way for the body to get its energy. It's broken down into glucose, which is great. They are digested into simple sugars that enter the bloodstream, and then the glucose can be stored. That's known as glycogen in the muscles, which is used to immediately produce ATP, which is the energy, I guess, for those cells. Right, so there are two major carbohydrate processing pathways. There's anaerobic glycolysis, um, which is also like the fast one, and then there's aerobic metabolism. So I would just be going over those two. So for the first one, the anaerobic glycolysis, it occurs in the cytoplasm of cells. It does not require oxygen, which is totally different from the second one that I'll be getting into. Right, so it doesn't require oxygen. It breaks down the glucose, like I was talking about earlier, from the carbs to quickly produce that ATP, which is very important. Um, Produces lactate as a byproduct. So when working out, lactic acid, things like that, just provides energy for short but high intensity activities. For example, if sprinters, they use that energy very quick, very short burst. Heavy weightlifting, same thing. And you really just get it a lot. I say commonly, but in very explosive movements. So it's very different than its counterpart, the aerobic metabolism or metabolism, however you want to say it. Uh, like I said, it's one of the two pathways. This is the oxidative pathway, so it does require oxygen. It occurs primarily in the mitochondria, which is very important. Like I said, it requires oxygen, so that means it breaks down the carbs more slowly, um, but produces much more ATP. Since it's a very slow process, it supports longer uh, duration activities instead of, as I was talking, like the anaerobic, how that's very explosive. It's more, think of exercises like, instead of explosive like sprints, think of long distance running. Think of I don't know, playing soccer. Right, the people in the World Cup today. Uh, just lots of sports with just endurance. Think of endurance as a great way to think of oxygen intake. Think of how much the carbs you consume. Think how they have to burn to compensate for that time, uh, that duration for. Right. So then So the carbs, like I said, and its relationship to the body, um, it kind of relies on those different pathways, the anaerobic or the aerobic. Oxygen or requires not as much or oxygen required and required uh, little to none. Really depends on the intensity and duration of the sport. Kind of like how I said, where people were to do high explosive, whether it be sprints or whether they do long distance running. Um, so it's very good just to try to just be mindful of that. For triangulation um, method for energy processing, it's very simple. It just shows the three main energy systems. One, two, three. You got ATP PC system, which is just immediate energy, very fast, very short of a duration of that energy. There's the anaerobic glycolysis, which we were saying, it's very short term, and that's as well as high intensity. The aerobic metabolism or metabolism, it's a long duration of energy, and we talked about the different athletic purposes for those. And then, so I guess going back to, say, a 100-meter sprint. For 100-meter sprints, the primary source of energy is obviously the explosive, fast energy required. So the ATP PC system, I guess, and the anaerobic glycolysis. The sprint for 100 meters lasts what, 10, 13 second range, depending on skill level. So that body needs very fast energy to be expended, since it's very high intensity, because you're giving it your all when doing a 100-meter sprint. So that stored ATP, that stored energy, and the phosphocreatine provide that first energy supply, that first oomph. And so then the anaerobic glycolysis, it contributes, kind of like, think of an afterburner effect. That's almost the same thing, basically what's happening. So the marker on the triangulation, so the closest to the ATP-PC corner with some of the movement at the end, like I said, kind of like the afterburner, that's where the anaerobic glycolysis comes into play. And like I said, think of how your energy is spent. That's what I was trying to say. For soccer, goalkeeper. This is a goalkeeper. Not to say that they don't do anything, but the primary source for sure definitely will be that ATP PC system. Think of, they're not out in the field. They're not creating quick, immediate passes or cuts or sprinting down to try to defend. They spend lots of time in the little goalie box, I think it's called, much of the game waiting, especially if their opponents are just attacking on their side and they're not even getting any action in a sense. However, when they do, they must perform short, explosive, in their movements, whether it be dives or jumps or just quick reactions, even just making contact with the ground and getting back up. Little things like that go a long way for them. So that's why the ATP system, like I said earlier, it's very quick, very sudden. So yeah, just sudden burst of energy. But it also, I mean, granted, it also depends on how much, how many times the opponents are trying to score on that goalkeeper. So it varies, but usually a goalkeeper is just a goalkeeper. Versus like a midfielder, as I was saying, they expend so much more energy, but not to say it's like sprints and sprints and sprints right away, because if that were the case, they have a whole 90 minutes, they won't be able to catch up, so they must expend their energy wisely. So that's where the aerobic metabolism contributes, because it's a longer duration of that energy that needs to be, they can't just be gassed after sprinting. They can't constantly sprint, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very longer of a distance, because since they cover those longer distance, a lot of their movements are required throughout the game, so you definitely don't want to expend their energy right away. So they need really good endurance, but they also, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't need their anaerobic systems, like that obviously comes to play where they're doing sprints or tackles. Like I said, kind of like an afterburner effect. Uh, but yeah, but it's closer for that for the marker, the triangulation marker for that. It's definitely closer to the uh, aerobic corner because there's just there with I mean there's some contribution with from the anaerobic glycolysis from and the ATP PC during the high intensity efforts. So it's yeah, I hope that makes sense. Uh, I think I covered everything. I'm not sure. I sound like a broken record, but I hope that made sense. And thank you. Okay, how do I end this? Oh my god. It's okay. I won't edit this out. Okay.